Good afternoon, everyone. This meeting will now come to order. Ms. Griffith, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir, Mr. Dampf.
Here.
Mr. Starnes. Ms. Werner.
Here.
Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Armature.
Here.
Mr. Blossman. Mr. Brown. Mr. Cox.
Here.
Ms. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Mallet.
Here.
Mr. Morris. Mr. Morrow. Mr. Temple.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Woods.
Here.
Mr. Zuschlag.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, there is a quorum to begin.
Welcome. This time we'll ask Ms. Werner to lead us in the invocation, and that will be followed by Mr. Brown, who will lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you please join me in prayer or for a moment of personal reflection? Father, as we come together before you in this Lenten season, we ask your countenance and blessing over this meeting today. We give thanks for the talented and gifted minds that have come together through this process, for the perseverance to find answers to difficult questions and to seek the path for resolution that will serve our great university and also our great state of Louisiana. We join our prayers in thanks for all those who continue to care for those suffering in mind or in body, doctors and nurses taking care of our COVID-19 patients and protecting our state. Please comfort those who are suffering. Please join us in prayer for our governor and all those who sit in a place of responsibility for all of us and the work we do together. We give thanks for the researchers and volunteers who have brought us to this time in the health of our state and nation. And we give thanks to all of those in leadership throughout our university who have brought us to this place today. To each one who sat around the table to give ideas, to have debate and discussion, that we could find the answer for LSU and for Louisiana. For all this, we give thanks and ask your continued blessings. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Ms. Werner. Mr. Brown, for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I apologize, I was muted, but
We ad-libbed without you. Thank you. Okay, today we have no public comments other than to wish Chairman Williams a very happy birthday. He's quite old and gotten a little bit older, so wish you were here to wish you in person, but happy birthday, Chairman Williams. Other than that, at this time, I will call on Mr. DeQueer and Ms. Torres to present their report for us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable board members, good afternoon. I'm just going to give you about a 2-minute introduction, and then Vice President of Finance, Donna Torres, will give you some details on this proposal. As the board knows, in September, we embarked upon a process of negotiating with 2 companies that both had cooperative endeavors that allowed them to present utility modernization proposals to LSU. Following the September board meeting, KPMG and our facility staff, KPMG were our consultants, as you know, spent several weeks meeting to discuss and refine exactly what LSU's needs were. Following those several weeks, they then began meeting with the companies to share those needs with them. And it was actually an interactive process where the companies provided some input to us on where we might want to refine what we were seeking. Ultimately, on October 16th, we advised the companies that after those meetings, we'd like them to prepare and submit to us final offers by November 25th. They submitted us final offers on November 25th, and KPMG then took those offers and conducted some very detailed financial and operational analysis, and then presented those analysis to LSU staff. But what we've done following that analysis, which was really useful, is we've utilized it to create a solution that provides LSU cost savings and enhanced reliability in its chilled water and electrical distribution system by actually selecting advantageous components from both companies. And that's I know it sounds like a mouthful, that is a handful. What I'd like Ms. Torres to do is share with you exactly how these companies have agreed to share those components with us. And she has a short PowerPoint she's going to run through and explain it.
Thanks, Winston. Nicole, will you bring up the PowerPoint, please? Great. And next page. So each company brings operational strengths. OnWave is the largest core competency district energy platform in North America, has proven campus infrastructure, reliability, and resiliency, and has the broadest district energy system portfolio of green technologies. Louisiana Energy Partners has unparalleled Louisiana district energy experience, sustainable energy efficiency, design and construction, and vast local design and construction resources. What both of these companies bring is extensive higher education experience and a firm commitment to diverse suppliers and decades-long service to LSU. Next screen. So in the process, there were key definitions of aspects of the modernization. One of them is the initial modernization solution. And we use the definition in the request for negotiation and final offer. Capital improvements were defined as the central utility plant and building mechanical systems. Both of them future improvements related to growth and capital renewal of assets within the building envelope. And central utility plant would include the main powerhouse, Highland, and the vet med plant, as well as in-building generation assets on the Baton Rouge campus. And then base operations and maintenance would include operations, maintenance, and lifecycle repair of the central utility plant, again, including the main powerhouse, Highland, and the vet med plant, and in-building generation assets, on the Baton Rouge campus. Next screen. So Enway's responsibilities in this initiative will be for central utility plant and the distribution system, the delivery of the initial solution through conceptual schematic design, construction management, and deployment of financing to the extent that it's not otherwise assigned to Louisiana Energy Partners. Enwave takes full responsibility for the delivery and the associated risk. They'll also provide performance of the base operations and maintenance based on specific key performance indicators and defined levels of service. They also have the opportunity to improve or to deliver capital improvements for the central utility plant and distribution system, and to finance those capital improvements for the central utility plant and distribution system, both to the extent not otherwise assigned to Louisiana Energy Partners. Next slide. Louisiana Energy Partners' responsibilities will be to the central utility plant and distribution system, the design and construction based on the conceptual schematic design and equipment specifications, key performance indicators, and level of service developed by Enwave and LSU. In the building mechanical system, they had the opportunity to deliver capital improvements for building mechanical systems and to finance those capital improvements, both of which would require full LSU approval. Next slide, Nicole. LSU's responsibilities will include, we retain the responsibility for operations and maintenance on the distribution system with the ability to transfer that responsibility at a later date. And we retain full approval rights for the delivery of the initial modernization solution and each capital improvement of the central utility plant and distribution system, including deployment of financing. In the building mechanical system, LSU retains responsibilities for operation and maintenance on the building mechanical systems with the ability to transfer that responsibility at a later date. And we retain full approval rights for the delivery of each capital improvement on the building mechanical system, including the deployment of financing. Next slide.
Good.
So with that, I will turn it back over to my colleague, Mr. DeQueer.
Thank you, Donna. So that is how we've taken the best aspects of both proposals and put them together in basically a strategy for LSU to modernize its utilities and electrical generation equipment. The step from here forward is all of that, should the board approve it, gets us to the starting line. Upon approval, we would ask for the authorization to negotiate a cooperative endeavor, a lease agreement with our real estate foundation, and all of the other necessary documents to basically affect this plan, which would have to come back to the board for approval. We have a draft resolution here. Mr. Chair, should you want to hear what we've put together?
Yes, sir, please.
The draft resolution would be, now be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Louisiana State University and Agricultural and Mechanical College concurs with the recommendations for the Utilities Modernization Initiative to include the initiation of a cooperative endeavor agreement between the university, the Real Estate and Facilities Foundation, Enwave, and Louisiana Energy Partners, as well as the leasing of utility infrastructure to the Real Estate and Facilities Foundation. Be it further resolved that the president is authorized to negotiate the final lease and all modernization-related documents for submission to the board for approval. So we think we have a structure that does what this board wants us to accomplish. It definitely will help a very aging utility system. And upon your approval, we will start putting the documents together necessary to make this happen. Are there any questions?
Questions, folks?
Mr. Dampf,
Yes, sir.
Chairman Dampf, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I'd like to say that, a few years ago, this board charged the administration with finding a way to reduce costs so that we did not have to increase the cost of attending LSU on the backs of families and students. And this utilities modernization was one component of that. And doing this idea to modernize these utilities is not only serving the goal of tremendous cost savings to the university, but also upgrading this equipment, particularly with the demands of technology and whatnot on the energy infrastructure. I can't think of a more difficult situation for a brand new general counsel in Winston DeQueer and an interim chief financial officer, Donna Torres, to be thrown into. But they have handled this with marksman and markswoman-like expertise. They have been just highly professional, dedicated, and just very impressive throughout this process in representing the best interests of the university and getting us to a point where we truly have the best deal for LSU. So I first want to commend you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this years-long vision in for a landing when many thought it couldn't be done. So your leadership has been very vital. Certainly President Gallagher and all of your dedicated hard work at making sure that we got this done. And Wayne, and your committee work and your work in leading this committee in this effort in getting us to a resolution that we can all be proud of. We board members come along and we see what's been presented and we're glad that we have a deal, but it's those of you who've been in the trenches, the board officers, Mary and Remy. So I just want to say personally, having see this as the realization of a lot of work and a lot of effort, I just want to thank all of y'all for what you've done and in putting together such a tremendous deal that is really going to help LSU both right away in terms of cost savings and in the long run in terms of badly needed infrastructure upgrades. So with that, I would move that the resolution be adopted.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am. Just wondering.
if it's appropriate or if we need a second, I could go after that. I'd like to add on to Mr. Williams' comments.
Okay, Ms. Werner, I'll take that as a second from you. Open the floor to discussion. I will then recognize you, and then Mr. Starnes asked to speak to say something as well. So Ms. Werner, you're next, and then I think Mr. Starnes wanted to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Want to echo all the sentiments of Mr. Williams and concur that when the General Counsel came on board with us just a little more than a year ago, I don't think he had a full scope of what the work that lay ahead would be. And he has done, as Mr. Williams recognized, along with the interim Vice President, Ms. Torres, an outstanding job and in that process, when new people come on board and you go from leadership to leadership, Mr. Williams to myself to you, Mr. Dampf, somebody has to hold the line of the work that's been done and keep everyone focused while people come up to speed and the process goes on. So I want to also thank Tony Lombardo for his patience, his work, his insight in all this. I began working with Tony when I first came on the board and worked on facilities back a few years ago and continue to and resolve in and explaining to us the technical side of things and having that long vision with his experience at LSU. And it's also been vital in this entire process. I want to thank all who have participated, our colleagues who have spent the time on meetings, especially Mr. Brown, and that we have gotten to this point today, because after all, as our colleague, Mr. Mallet will say, this is all for the students. We are here to serve them. And at the end of the day, this is about making our university a comfortable and safe place for our faculty to work and our students to learn. So thank you all for the work you have done.
Thank you, Ms. Werner, and with apologies to Mr. Storms, because I was going to call him a while back. So, Remy, I'm sorry, but you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Supervisor Williams, Supervisor Werner said all that needs to be said. Of course, I agree and echo their kind words about our staff and the fabulous work they've done. And also, they've highlighted the leadership role that Wayne Brown has taken. And I thank him for that. He has been absolutely essential in moving this thing forward. And I specifically, I guess this is the same thing that Mary and James had said, but I've been extremely impressed with both the amount and the quality of work that Winston DeQueer has done. I can't imagine how we could have done this without him. And I just want to thank everybody at LSU for doing it. I believe this is the right thing to do. And I look forward to supporting the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Storms, very much. Thank you, Ms. Werner. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other comments from any other board member?
Mr. Chairman, this
Yes.
is Wayne Brown. I appreciate the nice things said. It was a real opportunity for me to work with our staff, and I agree with Ms. Warner that Tony, and also add Patrick to that, worked really close, spent a lot of time with our KPMG consultants, and they know our needs and our opportunities, and they will represent us well going forward. I'd also like to thank Mr. Doug Castleberry with OnWave and Mr. Ed Tinsley with Louisiana Energy Partners for their work and interest in their companies. These are two fine companies. I think we have the best opportunity that we could have in having these companies performing the work that they are best suited for, and their cooperation working together and working with our staff is really appreciated. They're on the Zoom with us today, so I appreciate them joining us, and I appreciate the work. And we look forward to a successful venture going forward. And as Mr. Williams said, the outcome will hopefully be the payoff will be that we will be able to better take care of our students with our education opportunities. So I want to thank all those, and I've enjoyed working with Mr. DeCoeur. Certainly, he's put a tremendous amount of time into this, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership.
Thank you, sir.
Robert, Chairman, if I just want to give me a second, and I want to apologize because Tony Lombardo, I certainly didn't mean to leave him out, and I didn't want him to think that I intentionally did that. But Tony, I meant to include you. Thank you as well. I apologize.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other comments from any board members? Hearing none, I will ask Ms. Griffith to please call the roll. We're going to call the roll to accept the motion as presented. Ms. Griffith, please.
Mrs. Starnes,
Yes.
Ms. Werner,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Armature,
Yes.
Mr. Blossman, Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mallet, Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Morrow, Mr. Temple?
Yes, Mr. Morrow, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, I have you marked. Mr. Temple?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Abstain.
Mrs. Zuschlaw?
Yes.
Mr. Dampf?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is adopted.
Thank you very much. Yes, the motion has been adopted. Before we adjourn, I want to join in the comments by Mr. Starnes, Mr. Williams, Mr. Brown, and Ms. Werner. I especially want to start by thanking our friends at NWAVE and LAEP. They have worked extremely hard. They worked in very good faith with us. They have certainly represented their respective organizations quite well, but they've always consistently had the goal of also helping to serve LSU. We are deeply appreciative, and we look forward to a long and wonderful relationship. I'm very, very deeply appreciative of our board colleagues. This is exactly the way it's supposed to work. We take board members like Wayne Brown, who have areas of expertise, and we put them where they can be used best. I cannot tell you how much work Winston knows, I know, and others know how much work Wayne Brown did, and with his expertise, his dedication, above and beyond. He has got our deepest and greatest appreciation. Likewise, Tony and his team, Tony Lombardo, and the folks that he works with have worked tirelessly to serve LSU. We are deeply appreciative. The head coach of the team, Tom Galligan, as you all know, has done a wonderful job. Couldn't have done this without Donna Torres. She brings so much to the table. Donna, we are deeply appreciative. Also, our friends at KPMG have been tireless, creative, brought a lot to the table. We are deeply appreciative and thankful for their service. However, none of this happens without our quarterback, Joe Burrow. I'm sorry, Winston DeQueer, sorry. None of this happens without Winston DeQueer. I don't care if it's 8 o'clock at night or 6 in the morning. Smart, experienced, dedicated. Winston, you did a hell of a job. We are deeply, deeply in your debt. We will all be well served. I think we all have a lot to be proud of. So with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Armentor. I need a second, please.
Second from Randy. Second.
Second by Mr. Temple. Got you first. Without objection, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.